Welcome to another episode of Unpacking the Brand. My name is Randy Kessler, joined as always by CEO of TheRiot agency, Ken TheRiot. Ken, what's up, man?
Living the dream. Just glad to be recording another episode here with you, Randy. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and I think we'll finally get to see each other in person here soon. Is that right? We'll both be in Milwaukee, my hometown,
Yep.
actually, at the FTA event.
Yep. Nope. I'm looking forward to it. I heard about this great wing place that we have to check out.
Oh, yeah, I'll be landing and heading straight there. No plugs online. We don't want it to get too busy there, but yeah. I'm very excited. We'll leave it at
Yeah.
that. It'll be good to see everyone in person again and be at an event again. Haven't been actually probably since last year's FTA because I wasn't able to go to Loop last fall. So yeah, it'd be good. Be good.
Yeah. Nope. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
And today, tell us a little bit about Rich. We're talking to Rich Rodrigues. Is this is
Yeah.
someone you kind of came across in Florida
Yeah. No.
randomly here?
Yeah. Rich just happened to, I'm not in a social setting. Met him through a friend of a friend. And, as we got talking, and he's in the trade show world and, actually works for a pretty impressive company that builds experiential booths. And, as we got talking more, I was like, this is great. And I had,
Yeah.
the podcast had come up in conversation. And then, over time, I was like, do you want to come on the show? And he was like, I'd love to. And I was like, all right, this is awesome.
Excellent.
I didn't expect to be picking up guests like at the bar, but I guess it's how it goes. You know what I mean? So we'll roll
No,
with
I
it.
love it. As you know, working for a company that organizes trade shows, it doesn't get any better than somebody that can kind of help our customers and talk about what a good booth looks like, or an immersive, or something interesting, as opposed to some of the things we see sometimes, which aren't the best. We'll say so.
100%. Well, and then that's what came across in my conversation with him is he's a wealth of knowledge and he has an opinion on, what's good and data to
Mhm.
back those things up. So I just thought he'd be a great guest and I thought there'd be a lot of value for our audience. So very much looking forward to it. And
Absolutely.
he's a great guy. He's so
Well,
nice and a new dad and
yeah,
he's a good person.
awesome, awesome. No, that very excited about it. Let's go ahead and get to that conversation with Rich.
Yep. Sounds good.
In a world where brands compete for attention, where innovation meets strategy, and where storytelling drives success, join Ken Terrio and Randy Kessler as they dive into the world of branding, business, and beyond.
Joining us on today's episode is Rich Rodrigues. He's the Director of Strategy and Growth for Pinnacle. Pinnacle is a marketing agency that specializes in exhibit designs and experiences. As someone who works for a company that organizes trade shows, I'm very excited about today's episode. So, how's it going, Rich?
That's good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a great time to do this because I just got back from one of the coolest trade shows in the industry. So, well, in the events industry.
Okay.
What's that?
Well, yeah.
Hmm.
What event was
Sorry. So, RSAC or RSA, depending on how you call it, but it's a cybersecurity conference in San Francisco, and
that? Okay.
it has grown like tremendously. So, used to be just a bunch of 10 by 10s, 10 by 20s, and now full on like 40 by 80, 70 by 70,
Wow.
immersive, very experiential stuff. Like I could talk about, we could do an entire episode like based on this show, man. But like, you know, CrowdStrike shows up and they have these giant, more than life size like personifications of like malware and like ransomware. So like they'll create a character almost like a supervillain, and they actually create like 3D print this giant supervillain in the booth, tell a whole story around it. So yeah, like you're not going to see much pipe and drape at this show.
Right. Sounds that way. Oh, yeah. Just give us some background. So, you marketing background, or kind of how did you end up at Pinnacle? What's your backstory?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends who you ask, right? But like, the the truth is, I was a big logistics guy for a while, and then got really bored of it because I ended up in this role where instead of like dealing with the 3PLs and the truck drivers directly, I was kind of just talking to one guy who was then managing all that. So having the same conversation with the same person every day, which and like great guy, but like not my wife, so not somebody I wanted to talk to every single day. Um, and uh, then COVID, right? And my wife was actually like, you should get into sales, right? And I ended up working for this awesome dude down in Baltimore named Steve. He was like 27, and he had his own digital marketing agency. And I basically took over biz dev for him and have been in sales ever since. And I did really well at that job and wanted to try and sell like high ticket stuff. And so the natural progression I thought would be software, right? Kind of like a low barrier to entry, but high risk, high reward type of thing. Um, and was doing well there, but the company got rid of the entire sales team. There was no real like go to market or anything there, so it was never a good fit. But you don't know, right? It's like it was like my first big high ticket sales job. Uh, so I got laid off, and then I was kind of doing the social selling thing and connecting with people on LinkedIn, and then like massaging them a little bit to see if it's like a good culture fit, and then maybe I could sell you software and connected with this guy Jay, who was putting all these awesome pictures up of like CES and RSA, like the show I just came back to. I've always loved events, like live events, concerts, going to like the car show, motorcycle show, things like that. And I was just, I was like, hey, dude, like I was eventually going to try to sell to you, but like, are you hiring? And he said yes. And we had like these crazy similarities, like birthdays 3 days apart, diehard Ranger fans. We're both from New York. We were both living in Jersey. Um, and met up with him, started working with him. He's been like my mentor throughout the entire industry, and I haven't looked back, man. Like events is where I'm supposed to be, which is very nice. Like I'm not that young anymore, so it's nice to find something I feel like I actually fit in.
Very cool. I mean, it's an interesting story. Like just a little backstory. So I know me and Rich have known each other for just a year or so. Just met in South Florida, and I can tell how he's been successful in sales. Very charismatic guy, very smart. So I'm really looking forward to kind of learning everything you've learned on what makes an excellent booth.
Yeah,
I'm
post, I
happy to
mean,
share
COVID
it.
obviously destroyed, or sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just happy to share it because right, because it's all about asking questions, and I do that quite a bit. So I can share everything from all these event marketers that gripe all the time about their trade shows.
I can't wait. Oh man. And well, post COVID, right? I mean, COVID just destroyed our industry, obviously. So now it feels like there's this appetite for events again, which is super cool. Um, so let's just jump right into it. Kind of the core ingredients of a standout exhibit experience. I know you can go in a million different directions on this, but just maybe touch on that a little bit. Like what's a successful setup for you? What does that look like for a client?
Yeah, so it's you always the very first thing you want to nail down, right, is like the flow of the booth and like the layout of the booth, right? But like it's a slippery slope because then you could just fall into this like logistics trap where you're just making sure it's absolutely perfectly positioned for the aisle, for the main aisle. You're not too like if you're not facing the bathroom, things like that. But like what you said was 100% spot on, right? Like post COVID, there is an appetite for live events, but now we not that we're hitting like a lull in live events, but the appetite's changing a bit, right? Where
Mhm,
people kind of just don't want these over transactionalized trade shows. They want more of like these B2B experiences, right?
mhm,
And obviously B2C, but it starts B2C, and now we want to adapt it for B2B. So what you want, like at the end of the day, is environment and human design, right? So you want a flow where people are going through a story as opposed to just, I want an open booth because it feels open and inviting. Like I've seen plenty of like big booths that are open, like no, when you think of like a standard 20 by 20, right? It's kind of, I imagine what you think of, and it's 90% right at the time, is like a tower, right? With that's like your storage, that's your high branding tower, and then you have like four demo kiosks with probably double-sided monitors on each corner, right? So a corner, a demo kiosk each corner, and that's kind of what it looks like. That's not inviting, right? That's kind of like closed off, but it's so standard, right? Like there's no way for people to really interact throughout the booth. So if you have something bigger than that, it's kind of like let's create a space that's welcoming for like community inside of here, and then let's design a journey where the more people are interested, the more you can pass them off to someone that is the applicable person for them to talk to, right? So again, I could get into this as well, but like so let's say the flow of the booth, but like an intentional flow. not just
Right.
let's open the booth up for the sake of it being open. Like you have to create an element that's inviting. You have to kind of gain their attention and then keep it once they're in there. And that flow and that outline, the layout of the booth, that's very important. So that's one thing. Your staff, which I guess is like it's always kind of overlooked, which is insane, right? Like your human capital is kind of like the most important part because again, you could spend $700,000 on a really cool booth, but if your staff if they're not event people, it's going to fall flat, right? Or you have people walking by and saying like that was a beautiful booth from the outside. I took some pictures, didn't go in, nobody made eye contact with me. I didn't even get to the point with to see if I wanted to go through a demo. So your staff is very important. There's a lot of correlations as you both can imagine, to like theater with like events, right? This pipeline of like drama students that have become event marketers is like very healthy. So
Interesting.
I don't know why people don't do like these dry runs, like dress rehearsals for trade shows. I know some of the best event marketers I know do that, like 2 days before the show. Then when they get there to do a walkthrough, this is where you're supposed to be. I know eventually, like salespeople, I know you're going to be on the couch at some point, like sitting down, like minimize your time on the couch. Nobody on their phone, please, for the love of God. So that's important. Like doing these dry runs so people kind of get comfortable and know what you expect of them is a very critical thing to do, and not a lot of people do it.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting because one of the things that I obviously go to a lot of trade shows, is there's sometimes the sense of you're talking about being inviting, and I love that, but there's also a block of where they don't want non-qualified
Mm-hmm.
prospects to be. They don't
Like
want
me.
them wasting their time, right? Like they're trying to avoid it. So like, wow, they're like, and so I don't, how does someone you're better off probably taking people in and processing them as fast as you can rather than trying to be standoffish and wait for someone to engage. Like, the like a boat show is a great example of somewhere where there's just a lot of people that are there to look
Yeah.
and not necessarily buy, but you still need to put them through the brand experience, right? Like I liked what you were just talking about because it made me think of Disney World, like getting on a ride. Like you're in a line and processing, but it's all part of the experience. So there's some kind of intentional flow. But I mean, what do you like? How do companies avoid talking to people they don't want to talk to?
Yeah, well, so I have a lot of experience with this, right? Because I go to shows and essentially do like door-to-door sales, right? So I like
Yeah.
they don't want to talk to me at all. I'm the last person they want to talk to. But um it's kind of like, so I know a lot of brands that are like savvy event brands where they'll kind of create like a zone defense of like their staffers,
Yeah.
right? So they'll put guys like me up at front, right? Like so if you walk by, it's like, hey, beautiful dress, like, hey, love your hat, like come talk, that initial engagement, that'll pull them in. And then I just ask a couple of qualifying questions, right? If you're just here for coffee, grab a coffee, leave. I'm not going to scan your badge, anything like that. If you are kind of interested, like, all right, but if your goal of the show is just brand awareness, right? So cybersecurity is a great one, like a lot of new players in online trust, AI, everything. So if you want to learn about the brand, cool. I will pass you off to the next person who is maybe like a baseline product manager or one of our like regional sales reps to talk about that. If they get past that person, they're really interested, then let's bring them to an actual demo with one of our solutions engineers, right? Like, and as a salesperson, like the smart people, like the people that close the deal and I just kind of like fluff them up. So let's get them to that person. So it's this multi-layer check, but you have multiple people here who are qualifying them along the way.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's almost, I mean, it's just like any sales marketing funnel, right? Like
Right.
at the end of the day, we're trying to engage with every single person, then have some quick qualifying question and not disregard anybody or avoid them, but actively just bring in every single person and qualify them in the booth and still leave a positive experience for the person that maybe not be the right target market
They,
or
so
audience person.
one of the booths at RSA, they had I don't think there's a great strategy for everything, but it's good if you're kind of understaffed, right? They just had this like placard of different QR codes, and if I just had generic questions about becoming a maybe like if I was trying to get hired, right? So they had a QR code to scan to actually work for the company, right? Then they had a QR code if you want to be an applied vendor for marketing, if you wanted to be an applied vendor for something else, like one of the suppliers. So that's great. It was just, here's the placard, scan it and get out, right? Like that's great. But that's an immediate way to qualify somebody. And a lot of people are just looking for an out, right? Like if I'm here and I'm there and I love Cisco and I want to apply to Cisco and it's 10,000 employees, I'm not going to have a meaningful conversation at this booth. But now you've given me at least a portal where I can access and then kind of look into career opportunities. I could do my own homework.
No, that's interesting. You kind of like quickly provide whatever path anybody coming through would need. So it just quickly clear. Like I like that idea. So just a QR board where it's like, if you want to work here, if you want to partner with us, if you want to sell us, like scan this code and there's your next step.
Yeah.
Right. I like that. That's a good tip.
So when you're attending an event or like canvassing a trade show as looking for potential customers, I mean, that's got to be tricky, right? Because you're essentially telling them that in a weird way that their booth isn't good enough, but you're maybe asking like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or like, why are you doing it this way? Like, what's the approach there? Just out of curiosity, without like hammering them and ripping on their stand, right?
Yeah. So I never do that. And I've been in person when that's happened. A very well-known experiential agency sent over one of their like young reps and asked. So I was very good friends with this event manager because I'm a relationship guy. And in my heart, I really am just like, I just want to work with cool people. If you want to work with cool people, maybe down the line we could find a way to partner, right? Like I don't have to be your only vendor, but let me just be a vendor for some of your projects when you want to when you really have to like trust somebody, and you just want to like work with somebody that you enjoy working with. So I had developed this relationship with this event manager, and this guy saunters in, and we were already in the middle of like a 10-minute conversation just about how the show's going, how the travel was when you get there, where you going to dinner, things like that. And he just walks right into our conversation, has no clue who I am, and says, how much did you spend on this booth? And I take like 2 steps back, right? I'm like, I just gotta watch. It's like watching like a train wreck. I'm like, I just gotta see how this shapes out. And I don't know why she said it. I think she was so taken aback because she's feisty, and I think she just wasn't expecting this. And she was like, about like 1.2. And he looks at her dead in the face and goes, I'm not impressed. I think we could do better. And hands her his card and walks away. And I'm looking at her and she like shows me the card. She was like, did you see that? Did you catch all that? I'm like, so not a great strategy at all. I think that speaks more about like their sales leadership than the actual company, because I know they do fantastic work, but not a cool strategy. So like what I try to do is I do my homework before the show. Not for every brand, to be completely honest. Sometimes there's a brand at the show that wasn't on my radar, and I'll go and kind of look at the experience, and I'll ask, what kind of story are you trying to tell here? Do you mind walking me through it? I very rarely come right out and say like, hey, I'm a sales guy trying to tell you something. Because like at the end of the day, I'm a director of strategy. Like I do really care about your strategy for the event and your attendees and your guests. But I try to kind of approach like, if there's a recent acquisition, like what does that look like, right? Like first off, as a human level, like that's scary, right? Because you don't know if your job's going to be there once the acquisition's fully over. But like, how are you trying to tell that story to your customers and like potential partners down the line, because you're going to merge? If you did something like bold in the booth, how did you come up with it? Like RSA, so many themed booths, man. And like, Ken, we're like 2 hours from Disney. Like I'm a sucker for like pageantry and theming. So like, how did you come up with this theme? Like, what does that look like? How did you conceptualize it? Did you rely on your partner? Like, how did you find that partner? I kind of just give them a lot of opportunities to talk about things they didn't like with their current partnership, right? But the question I hate the most, and people ask me this, not often, but they do ask, it's like, what would you have done differently? I'm like, how about you give me 7 months to conceptualize something and work with my strategist and creative, then I'll tell you what I would have done differently. If it's something as simple as like, I know your graphics don't fit, right? I know they weren't steamed. I see that they don't fit. You're hanging signs like lopsided, things like that. Like I wouldn't have done that, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you after months of planning with like your brand people, your product people, leadership, that something in your booth is wrong. I don't think that's the right way to do it. Like event people have internal stakeholders, they have external stakeholders, they have people like me talking about your booth on LinkedIn, like what what to do, what not to do. You don't need me coming in like while you're surrounded by hundreds of people that are potential leads telling you what you did wrong.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like I mean, what does a typical sales process look like? You know, how early is someone talking to you about a booth in the future? Like how I guess maybe a more specific question is how far advanced should someone be planning their trade show booth?
Okay, so if anybody at Pinnacle listens to this, they're gonna get very upset with this answer. But like, I, we just need like 6 weeks. Like, if you give us 6 weeks, we can do it, right? Like, I think that's like it's not great. That's like the drop dead date. We'd
Okay, yeah.
prefer like 6 months. Our CES clients, we have 11 months.
Okay.
They go to CES. We have 4 or 5 clients in the West Hall at CES, which is like that's the hall, right? Um, they go home, they kind of relax for like 2 or 3 days. Then they do an immediate debrief, what went right, what went wrong at CES, and then like a week later, they're already talking about next year.
Wow.
So, but that's CES is a behemoth. It's not like that for everybody, but I feel like the average is like you want to get 6 months ahead of it.
Yeah.
Because a
Okay.
lot of these people, like they kind of have like their flagship trade show, but they go to like 20, 25 of them. Then their sales teams go
Right.
to even more of like these regional pop-up shows. So yeah, like for the flagship shows, I think 6 months is safe. There should be nothing you can't do within 6 months.
Yeah. No, that's fair from my experience. I'd say that's usually within six. You know, you want to be having an idea and working toward the finish line within 6 months. So
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
You had mentioned the word immersive, like an immersive experience within the booth, and you kind of touched on that with sort of the intentional flow comment that you made. So is that talk about what is an immersive experience? Is that someone gets in the stand and they're captivated, like it just feels right, or what? Talk about that.
Yeah, it's kind of like brand theater, right? So you go in and you have like not necessarily needed, but like CES is a great example. And this year, a lot of people leaned into it. You walk in, you have these huge 18 feet, 20 feet walls that are branded like to hell with just all graphics that are super clean, like SEG graphics with different messaging and logos and branding on it. So you're standing in something that is unmistakably branded by the company. That's like immersive. You're seeing all these like wraparound LEDs, so you're in like a moving kind of like brand theater world. That to me is immersive. An example that doesn't have to be like a brand. If anybody's ever gone to like the Meow Wolf installations, right? Like in Denver, in Vegas. I'm not sure if I think there's one in Texas too. Those are immersive, right? Like they've created these worlds that you walk into seemingly like a warehouse, and all this like the one in Denver specifically I've been to, you end up in like this seedy like alien planet, right? Like literally, like they like one part of the warehouse is like all floral and like whimsical, and then the other one is like uh essentially looks like the Men in Black ride from like Disney. Like it's grimy, there's like garbage, there's like storefronts. Like that to me is immersive. But it's not engaging, like physically engaging, but it is immersive, right? You kind of have to have like you have to participate. You have to put yourself in the story for something to be engaging. I feel like, but that is very immersive.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's almost like brands having its own theme song, but visually, like you're kind
Hmm.
of get lost in it for a bit. Something that Disney does really well, right? Like when you
Yeah.
go from Toy Story Land to Star Wars Land or whatever they call it, like you kind of are like, whoa, I'm on a distant planet right now, and it's completely different.
Yeah.
So like, what do you? I mean, what are some of the tactics that brands do to achieve that? Right? Like, what is there anything that uniquely stands out to you? Like, um, is lighting, it's like carpet choice, like, is there specifics? Like, how does someone bring that to, or is it more like you're saying, developing a character for a product? Like, I mean,
I mean that would be the cool way, right? Like I wish everybody could create like personify their product into something and create, but like I used to work for Marvel Comics, right? So I'm a huge nerd. Like I would love that. Um, the CrowdStrike booth, great example. Like they personified their I guess they personified the pain point that their consumers have, right? And that their clients have, and made that a character. And then they had these like all these drop down LEDs, and it felt like you were in like a moving maze essentially if you like looked up. It was unmistakably CrowdStrike. They had the colors as well. If you had removed all the CrowdStrike logos, you still would have known it was a CrowdStrike booth, which is like that is a
Okay.
10 out of 10 choice. But not everybody has this budget, right? Like I know some people that kind of just they have the graphics and then they have like one LED wall that they rented, right, from their AV or their exhibit house's AV provider, and that just has like some really good content on it and unmistakable branding. So you can do the LED wall it's great. Everybody loves it. It can be expensive, but if it's like the centerpiece of what the story you're trying to tell, it's definitely worth the investment.
Well, I think something that you just said there really hits it. Like it's um, creating an experience that people know it's your brand without your logo being
Yeah,
present, right? Like that's really the key. And however that happens, but that should be the goal.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's tough to accomplish, right? That's very tough to accomplish, especially if you're a new brand, like you don't know what your voice is and the
Right.
level of like brand maturation, you just don't know, but that's what these events are for. Like you kind of just tell a story every year. There's a uh Wiz shows up to RSA every year and they create this like amazing themed experience. And so it's at the point where even if you didn't know the colors might change, even if you didn't know it was Wiz, if you're in this booth that's like they did Wizard of Oz one year. This year they did like a full-on laboratory with like moving conveyor belts that had like little robots on it. You'd probably be like, I'm probably in the Wiz booth. Like I haven't seen any Wiz logos, but most likely, based on what I'm experiencing right now, I'm in the Wiz booth.
Yep. Nope. I like that a lot. Like one that I've gone to a lot of to Dreamforce and Salesforce conferences, and they have they have their trailblazer. Like everything's like kind of national park campground feel. So there's little fires happening, and they have fireside chats, and all of the kind of the imagery is all on the national park theme, and they've personified all their products with like
Yeah,
the Einsteins and several different characters that represent different products. So kind of speaking to all the things that you just talked about, like you could easily know that it's a Salesforce experience without seeing a Salesforce logo if it's in their Trailblazer campground theme.
yeah. No, I love it. It's like you're developing this story over time, and people will pay attention to it if you show up correctly.
Yeah. Nope, I like that.
I wanted to touch on the low budget thing again because a lot of our exhibitors or clients that's 20 by 20s or smaller, maybe they're listening, maybe they're not. They're not always the best booths. We'll just flat out be honest. Ken, you've been to these events, right? So, what are some low budget, sort of immersive or engaging ideas for booths without like expensive tech or large booths? These 400 square foot spaces are smaller. I know you mentioned the LED wall, but I mean, anything else or
Yeah, I mean, you can do an active like the structure is where everything gets expensive, right? But like you can find an activation that maybe is not nearly it doesn't have to be tied like 100% to your brand. You kind of have to have your staff do the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
The answer that I'm going to say for like is one that is kind of risky for people is if you have a 20 by 20 and your budget is tight, maybe you shouldn't even have a 20 by 20 at that show. Maybe you should do something off the show. Maybe you should have a depending on what your goals are for the show, maybe you should have like a 10 by 20 or a 10 by 10, right? Where you're just doing like top of funnel awareness for people at the show. And then you have a restaurant takeover or a branded takeover or some kind of VIP experience off the show floor where now you're having your partner meetings, you're having your leadership meetings, you're having these middle to bottom of funnel like deals where you're adding velocity to those deals. Maybe that's what you should be doing. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to penny pinch and create this like awesome experience when you could just do that off the show floor. And I say that because the show services are getting so expensive where back in the day it was kind of like a 60-40 split where 60 could be creative and designed for the booth and then 40% was actually going to labor and services. Now it's kind of flipped. So people are kind of going off the show floor and they're getting more bang for their buck because they could be more creative. There's less regulations, and they're getting a better ROI on it. So yeah, I mean that's kind of it. Like I'm a storyteller. I think you can tell a great story in a 20 by 20. But a lot of it's going to have to do on your staff and the graphics that
Mhm.
you're using and the messaging on that graphic.
Yeah,
Yep,
you
notes.
touched on staff a couple times, and that I think, I mean, Ken, you can attest to this. Like, how many times have we been to events and you're just walking down the aisle and it's just a couple guys. They might not even be
Well, yeah.
standing up; they're staring at their phones. Rich, you mentioned it before. Like, get off your phone. They're not even
Yeah.
making eye contact. They look crabby as hell. It's like I want nothing to do with this company right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it kind of speaks to something that Rich talked about earlier is there's different personalities for different needs. And some of
Hmm.
these booths, like there's technical conversations that need to happen, toward the end of the funnel marketing and sales process. But often these booths get staffed by those people because they need to be there. And then if you have a smaller booth, then it's difficult to, you're not going to have two or three people, to get through. So they're just putting kind of a sales rep that's there, and they're not, um, you know, the personality of that salesperson needs to fit the booth experience, right? Or they're really damaging it. Like that company's investing in putting a booth, even if it's a lower budget, it might still be $100,000 total for them to be there, right? And they, on paper it makes sense to put the sales guy there, but he also might just be wasting that 100 grand for you because he's kind of, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy where he's like, I don't have any good prospects here, and but he's not even trying to engage anyone. So in a lot of ways, like I kind of, I was thinking about what Rich said about kind of off the you know smaller booths and different experiences. Like there's a lot of ways that can be taken, and maybe um you just got to identify what the goal of the booth is in general, right? Like, why are you actually there? Um, but yeah, I agree. There's a bunch of lame salespeople hanging out in trade show booths across the world right now, where
Well,
they,
It's an
and
epidemic, Ken.
that's like the number one nightmare I hear for some of these event managers that are in these not like enterprise companies that can just kind of afford to throw all the money at the event anyway, but um they have like maybe let's say they're all in event budget, including like sponsorships, is like 1.5 million or something. So they go to like these smaller shows and their sales team will not engage with people, right? And then they will come back from the show and then they'll get the leads from marketing, or like their BDRs were just scanning everybody that walked into the booth. And then they'll complain about the quality of the leads, and then they'll
yep,
blame marketing. And then marketing will blame sales for not following up with these people or qualifying them in the first place at the show. And then basically what happens is the event disappears or your footprint disappears, right? And that
yep,
budget goes to something else in the company. And what these salespeople don't understand, and I am a sales guy, so I take events very seriously. Like I always say, maybe don't come right out and threaten your sales team, but I'm more than happy to talk to them. Like, hey, bud, I don't have a company that goes and exhibits at these shows. I'm cold calling people. I'm flying across the country and talking to these people in person. I'm sending emails to these people. I'm going reaching out to them on LinkedIn. If you want to do what I do every day, then by all means keep neglecting the event. Like, because you're being given an opportunity to basically, you could probably hit your quota and get all these warm leads at this show, but you're sitting here blaming the quality of the leads on marketing. Like you're not
yep.
doing your part, right? There has to be an absolute partnership between marketing and sales at these events for these events to keep thriving and for like your footprint to keep growing. It's just it's such an amazing opportunity, especially post COVID, during the AI craze, to really make an impact in person. And if you're not aligned with everybody there, you're going to end up making cold calls, 50 cold calls a day, dude. And you don't want that, trust me. Nobody wants that.
I mean, two things. Well, like you mentioned, just the alignment between marketing, sales, and the trade show floor is like the visible representation of
Hmm.
of where marketing and sales need to be aligned. Like it really needs to be aligned all the time, and be working together, and not. I think, um, I had this conversation a lot with clients and prospects on how, marketing as a department has evolved considerably, in the last 20 years, where 20 years ago, marketing was really a support role of sales, doing sales enablement materials and providing, sell sheets and, booth designs, things like that. Where now marketing in a lot of ways is leading kind of the sales process if done well, where the average buyer wants to go through 80% of the purchasing decision before talking to a sales rep, right? And I tell all of my customers now, like, the sales that you lose are when a customer doesn't get the experience they expected. So you need to tell everybody what to expect from the very beginning. And then you just need to confirm what you've already told them. Like, by the time someone's talking to a salesperson, they just want to confirm what they believe, right? And so if you haven't already told them that, then, that's shame on you, right? Like, you got to tell them what's happening. And that's where so much alignment between marketing and sales needs to be. Like, I just had someone email me last week from a trade show that I went to 3 months ago. And I specifically told them, like, and I don't want to mention it, who it is, but like, I was like, hey, I have a customer that needs this, like, now. So like, you should call me in the next 2 weeks. I just got like an email from that rep being like,
Not
hey, just,
specific, I bet, right?
no, not specific. Like,
Yeah.
basically just blew that like 2 week timeline off, and then just said, hey, I just, wanted to follow up on our conversation, at so and so, like, if you still thought product was a good fit for your company, like,
Dude, I hate it so much. It's that I get them too, right? I beg these people, please don't scan me. Like, I'm a sales guy. I'm just gonna waste like Dave's time, right? Like, just please don't let me do. And I get the email, and it's like, uh, hey, sorry I missed you at the booth. Where are you in your buyer's journey? Like, where am I? What kind of question is it? Like, dude, if you can't point to like a single thing we spoke about, then don't send me the email. Like, that to me, dude, is crazy that you literally said this to them and it took them 2 months, and then he didn't even have the wherewithal to personalize it to exactly what you asked him.
yes. Well, I mean, then that's, and again, I bring that up because of the marketing and sales alignment, right? Like, but prior to the show, you really should be, if you're using a lead scanner or whatever you're doing to capture kind of your leads and just the traffic in general, like, you need to create that flow in a way to accurately capture how you need to communicate to them in the future, right? And
Yeah.
so that might be, timeliness, qualification, all those things, and do that in a way where you can capture everybody that's going to come by the booth, not just the specific person. Because I see a lot of companies kind of create that flow, and, they'll put like the flow for the ideal prospect, but, and if they don't want to ask too many questions, but then you get into the, like, in the actual booth experience, the people operating the scanner or the app, like, they're just trying to scan it and like get through it as fast as they can without putting any additional information in
Yeah.
there. So then you just get a whole series of emails, and then marketing doesn't really know what to do with it, and so they're just like, oh, we'll just blast this out, what I mean, better than nothing.
Yeah. And your
And
your your
oh,
data's
oh
garbage.
yes,
And
yep.
how are you supposed to
So
improve when you do there's like two schools of thought when it comes to like the lead stuff. I'm very much in the don't scan anybody that's not a good lead, right? Like, I'm
yep,
firmly in that. But
yep,
there is kind of like there's something to be said. This dude in Canada, actually he pushed back on that, and I thought it was very valid. Like, there is something to be said for like lead scoring, right? So he kind of wants everybody. He wants,
yeah,
like, if I saw you, right, trade shows in Vegas, you're hungover, you see a place with like free lattes or something, and you go and get the latte. He's scanning you because he needs to see just how many people went to the F&B activation, and didn't end up becoming a good lead, right? Maybe now we're spending too much money on F&B. So there's something to be said for that. But I think a lot of it can be cut out by somebody just asking that extra one or two questions, you know? So maybe there's a way
I
you can meet in the middle.
I totally agree. I mean, I fall in the camp of recording everybody because if they're on the show floor, they are market adjacent to you, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're at a trade show, right? I mean, I guess maybe there's some um much larger shows that are not industry specific that are, or that maybe there's less overlap, but like for um a lot of trade shows, everybody that's there is adjacent. Probably good for them to think positively of your brand. But so you just need to have a one or two, like, reasonable lead, or just, friend of the industry,
Right.
some way to,
Here's a nurture campaign, like just exactly like brand affinity is also a part of the pillar, right? Of this
correct.
brand equity we're trying to build. So yeah, no, I that's fair. It's just yeah, this is kind of like the ongoing struggle with a lot of people. It's how do you prove ROI, and like does it look like it used to, right? Like I go to AUSA a lot, and I spoke to this woman that runs a very huge booth there. Her metrics, and not everybody has the luxury of having these types of like soft metrics, but it's did we have 70% of the pre-appointed meetings, and then were 70% of those pre-appointed meetings good conversations, quote unquote.
Yep.
Like that's it. Like it's kind of like a gut check, right? But like when we're talking about exhibitors that are trying to get the most bang for their buck in a 20 by 20, that's probably not going to cut it, right? Like I can't just be like gut check is 70% of the conversations were great, right? It's got to be like actual hard data. So yeah,
Do
it's kind
you,
of like an ever evolving ROI situation.
yeah, no, it's uh, ROI on trade shows is a moving target, right?
Hmm.
Like a lot of our customers, like it basically comes down to like the, you know, sales leader or CEO being like, no, that was a great show. Love it. Let's get a bigger booth next year. Right. Like, and it might be like,
Got any
you
data
know,
to back that up? No, it was a great show. Great show. Yeah.
but I mean, it's one metric, right? Like if they
Hmm.
feel good about it,
CEO, CEO personality. Yeah.
so
Well,
I,
it's like I'm a big sports guy, right? It's kind of like the it's like the eye test and then the box metrics, right? Like the box scores. Like it, did it feel right? Like it felt great. Now let's do an actual debrief, like a postmortem. Let's see where the numbers lie. So it's
right.
yeah. No
Well, I mean,
CEO's gonna.
and I wouldn't even say a gut reaction is necessarily completely invalid. Like, if they're a leader within that organization, they probably have a good sense of like, did we build momentum? Is there good inertia? Right. And so you should kind of write that, it might be anecdotal, but write it down and then see like,
Mhm.
what do the actual numbers say? Because at least you're benchmarking, right? Like, oh, we had
Right.
this much this year. And if we're going to go back next year, let's see if we can increase that. Um, do you see any like, technology being used to track engagement within the booth? Like, how they have like,
Yeah.
they do this in grocery stores, right? Where they're watching traffic patterns using AI, to see if
Well,
someone's
don't
engaged.
get me started on grocery stores and like dynamic pricing in the next like 5 years, or we're all screwed. But no, there's a few companies that are kind of like helping these like data driven event marketers. One of them is Fast Sensor that Pinnacle has a partnership with. It started off kind of just like simplistic, right? Like there was like a hidden camera that you would put above the booth, and it would kind of like capture dwell time and like the journey. Right now, it's actually gotten even more advanced, and I actually need to do a call with them to see like the new features. But it's a great indicator of how your booth is working in terms of the flow and who's interested and where they're interested. So that's the best one that I know of in terms of like
Okay.
on-site data that people are capturing.
What I mean is that cost prohibitive? Like, is there
I
a
don't think
high?
so. I don't think like you can get multiple cameras, but if you have a tiny space, I really don't think it's no. I like we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars for this, not at
Okay.
all. Um,
Okay.
and it's like if more people on the show floor are using this provider, you actually have an even better picture of like so like if I go to a show and there's like three massive booths that are using it and I'm a 20 by 20 at the end of the hall, because those different cameras are up, it's capturing a bigger area that now Fast
Right.
Sensor has access to. And now you see, okay, well, this huge booth had this kind of traffic. What are they selling? How did their booth look? How was it set up? what was the attendee journey like there? Maybe I can mimic that in my smaller scale booth. So
Yeah.
it's only beneficial. I think people that don't kind of try and track this are kind of crazy.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is one way just to, you know, leveraging technology like that, just being aware that there's technology like that. Like
Yeah.
I've in, previous years, we've just set up, at the top of the booth just so we can post mortem and be like, oh, what happened? People are, and you kind of fast track kind of through the timeline, like, all right, how many people are coming through? What are they doing? Just like it's like game footage, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's look at the game. Let's see what happened. And then that's when if you're doing that, you can look at your sales rep and be like, do you see yourself on the phone in the chair right there? You
Yeah,
see
well, why did
10
John
people
go to the
walking by?
bathroom 14 times? Like, what the heck's going on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
So
like you had
Ken,
4 lunches that day. Like the food sucks. Why, like, you know what I mean?
so to put things in perspective of how frustrating events can be, right? You have the same strategy as one of my $1 billion clients. They would set up a camera on top of their LED wall to see how many people kind of stopped and what. And I'm like, guys, you can afford like an actual tracking tool, right? Like
Right.
you own an F1 team. You can do this. I promise you. Like you are building the fastest machines on the planet. You can afford a camera that goes on top that tracks heat, you know?
No, but I mean, either way, I mean, the moral of the story is like you should be trying to like review
Yeah.
success and failure is not just leads or not just scans, right?
Yeah.
Like and seeing what level of engagement you get, and so I mean, I agree with that. What like we were talking about kind of, I think you'd said low cost immersive experience or something earlier, Randy. And
Mhm.
one year, like I pumped scent into the booth. Like, do you see anybody doing anything like that? Like,
Do I? Yeah. So,
like
another one of my like bigger clients when I first got into the industry, adamant that if the booth needed to hit all of your senses or they weren't going to do something. So they had like tomato plants show up because they sold ketchup, right? Like so little things like that. So it matters because you're creating the experience, and it's also you can tie it back to I don't know like how many times have you got like sometimes I'll smell something around here and it'll remind me of like Key West, right? Like
right,
and I remember everything about like Key West. So like it's important. I think like a regular experience, I can go into your booth and I could watch a story that you tell, right? Not engage with it. And I think after like a week or two, you only can recall like 30% of the message, right? But if you have something that actually engages your senses and it makes it memorable and you can tie emotion to it, different types of emotion too, like not just happiness, you can recall almost 70% of it. That's a huge jump.
right.
That is like a massive jump. So that's what this is all about, right? It's trying to spike emotion in people and find something that resonates with them.
Mhm.
But that's why I'm a big fan of like let people be a part of the story, right? Like immersive is
Right.
one thing, engaging is the other. Where when they meet in the middle and you have this like active plus passive engagement, something as simple as like if you're gonna have a Q&A, like if you have a keynote, like a mini keynote or something, or you have somebody at your 20 by 20, your CEO gives a talk with this branded background, right? Like that you paid for. You have a branded background here. You can capture content. Your CEO gives a talk. Just do a little Q&A at the end. Give people a chance to ask him, right? As opposed to just clapping and walking away. That was great, you know? Like that's bare level passive and active engagement.
Right. Nope. I agree. So I mean, so the moral of the story is try to engage all of the senses, no matter how big a booth you have or what you're doing, but don't just be a 3D brochure.
Right. And
Right.
it's tough. Like if you have like the cybersecurity show I went to, how can people touch cloud security? You know, so
Right.
like we built for one of our clients we built a basically like a ray tracers live game and with haptic technology. So you went into the maze and you were kind of touching and feeling like, but that's tough, man. Like it's not everybody has the budget for that, but that's how you take something intangible and you make it tangible so people can get their arms around it, kind of.
Right. No, I like that. That's awesome.
We have an Italian exhibitor that always serves pasta in their stand, right?
There
So,
you go. That works for a lot of shows, man. That's it.
right, right. It's like, yeah, man, spaghetti again. I don't know how we are on time here. Rich,
Right.
or I guess Josh can, whomever, but it'd be interesting if you could share, you referenced clients across different industries and you mentioned F1. Maybe you could share a story of a, successful setup you did for somebody and why it worked out.
Yeah, honestly, that cyber maze with the tracers, that was fantastic. They got like 900 MQLs from that, right? Um, what that looks like after the fact, like was it truly 900? But yeah, I mean, people went through the experience, and like you said, Ken, like when you go to these shows, if you're market adjacent, there's maybe like 5 or 6 of me floating around, right? So and I didn't. Maybe I would have went through it as like a content guy, right? I'm like part content creator. I would have went through the experience, kind of see what it was like to then talk about it. But I didn't. I didn't, and I don't know many people that would. So out of those like 900 MQLs, it's probably a good amount of like actual leads in there, and that's because we cultivated an experience for these people. So that's a really great example of it. Pinnacle also built with a partner agency, but we did the fabrication. We this ties back to something I said earlier about going off the show floor. For Supercell and Brawl Stars, which I'm not a mobile gaming guy, but this is dis- taking over the gaming industry, right? Like, so Brawl Stars is a big deal. At San Diego Comic-Con, we built a theme park based on the game on 2 floating barges next to the convention center. So like
Wow.
people came out onto the barges, they took like a metro ride to the actual to Star Park and went through different, like all it was missing was like true roller coasters and stuff. Like this Disney would have been proud. So fully immersive. Like you were in Star Park, but like you were engaging with like the actors and going into the activation. So you were a part of the story, and now your story is sharing with fellow attendees and guests. That's powerful stuff. Like storytelling should be like table stakes. Story sharing should be what you're aiming for. So building something like that is one of the coolest things we've done recently.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. So you just mentioned 900 MQLs. What do you think, like for, you know, marketing leaders and executives, what is a good ROI? Like how many, like, so 900 MQLs, I don't know if they're selling a 1999 subscription service or what, like, I don't know, like the number of leads isn't necessarily the top driver of ROI, so how do you, and maybe you guys, you don't have a good answer for this, like, so I don't want to, but how do you know if it's good or not? Is it like we all want, if our booth was $1 million, we want to have $10 million of opportunity coming out of that. And maybe we pay for it, or how, what I mean? What?
Yeah, that's a fair like baseline metric, right? It's like we should. I think all these booths, a brand equity is nice, right? Like affinity, of like awareness, loyalty. Obviously, these are like important things. But I think all these booths at trade shows, right? Like there's events are different. Like if you do activations at like a concert or a sporting event, that's different. But like at a trade show, I think at the very least, your booth should be like a demand gen engine, right? To an extent. So I think it should be, we've created X amount of pipeline based on this show. And then the attribution models have changed. It's not just like I met you at the show, then a salesperson follows up, and then it was like his lead and his touch points. It's like, no, I'm going to trace this back to 2 years ago at CES. They didn't know about it. They had a meeting with John in like our solutions architect, and that was the very first touch point. So when this deal closes 2 years later for like X amount of dollars, that gets tied right back to our booth that we did at CES. So that
Right.
attribution model is very important. I think pipeline is the easiest metric that you should be attaching to your events.
So you just made a point that I was going to make. So I'm happy you said that about kind of trade show ROI is a multi-year, multi-touch
Absolutely.
attribution,
Yeah.
right? Like, and
Absolutely.
that is like incredibly important because, for a lot of leaders, like, especially for people that are like deciding to rebook at the show, it's very difficult to be like, oh, well, this show was great, we should rebook. It's like, well, you don't know, like you might have one, if you are walking away with 100 leads, I'm just using round numbers, like the lifetime value of a brand new prospect in there might completely eclipse the cost of this show over the next 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, for years and years and years. Yeah.
Correct. So
But now here's the beautiful part, right? A lot of these shows, you have to book that next year's booth before this show even ends. So a
Correct.
lot of it is just like, you really need to
Sorry.
rely on your marketing team.
I-
Yeah.
well,
Like, and I love it too, because they're not subtle about it. Like at RSA, there was like a huge like exhibitor rebook like section, like
right.
you're
That's
not
not,
leaving here without, or you can leave here, but then in a couple of months, you're going to have a 10 by 10 in the corner, you know?
And it'll cost more.
Yeah.
You won't get the lower rebook rate. Yeah.
well, so I mean that brings up a good point. When you decide to exhibit at a show, you really should be looking at a multi-year, not like a
Absolutely.
one off at a time. That's probably, you know, I wouldn't say don't do it at all. But it's probably the wrong way to look at it, right? Like
It is.
it's kind of like opening a store like on Main Street and then, being like, the first week, oh, we didn't sell enough, we're shutting down. It's like, no, this is an investment. Like you need to make sure you're committed to it for a long period of time. Just because, people don't get to go to it. They might not have time to go to your booth, or that they walked by your booth and you were a little busy. They didn't really want to like jump in there. They don't like a lot of people. They're trying to look for the right time, right? Because
Or
I've had
printing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ken.
well, I'm going to say, like, I know specific stories of people saying, "Oh, like 2 years later, 2.5 years later, I wanted to go see your booth, but I couldn't, and you just popped back up on LinkedIn, and I reached out, but I remember wanting to talk to you and not being able to." Right? So it's
Yeah. No, there's so many. There's a lot of reasons, and like KBIS and IBS, the building show that was in Orlando, I spoke to a lot of people there that specifically change how they show up, because they don't really like the Florida market. Like they do, but it's not as, when that show goes to Vegas and they get the West Coast and the Midwest people to go out there, it's a completely different response. So I'm always
right.
shocked at how many like Pinnacles, we're not cheap, right? Like we're not the most expensive, but we're not cheap. So I have people come to me and they're like, well, I have like $100,000 budget, right? For this like 40 by 40. I'm like, well, that's going to be tough, right? Like that's going to be tough, but you should be looking at this in like a 3 to 5 year life cycle, because we can amortize the cost of this booth. We'll make it modular, right? So your regional shows that are 10 by 10, you could have one of the backdrops for this 40 by 40, but $100,000 for you're thinking about like one show and one investment, and now this thing living over, like you really should increase your budget, because you're getting more bang for your buck if you're thinking over the 3 to 5 year life cycle, which is a typical booth life cycle.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish more exhibitors thought that way, to be quite honest. So future wise, like where do you see events going? You mentioned, I think, sort of these festival style,
Oh
smaller
yeah.
scale type events, but like, you know, 3 to 5 years from now, like what do you envision within the events industry?
Yeah, that's the cool thing. That's the thing I'm most excited about, is like this B2B festival type thing that they're doing. There are shows that do it really well. There are shows that don't do it that well, but are trying. GDC is a huge gaming show in San Francisco. I was there 2 weeks ago. They are rebranding as like a festival, but there's a lot of heavy lifting for the organizer to do to encourage people to take this festival approach. RSA doesn't call themselves a festival, but that is 100% what it is. It is like Wiz had their booth. They also had like Pinnacle built it, a no AI zone across the street, which was awesome, dude. Like you walked over, like nobody was talking about cloud security or AI, and they had a place for you to get coffee or ice cream, and free, like if you, as long as you had your badge on and stuff. And they had these postcards that were like pretty cheeky about like and then they provided the postage, so you would just send, like, so I sent my wife, so and Ken, as Paige and I check the mail like once every like 3 months, so she's not going to get this thing, like my kid's going to be like driving by the time she gets this postcard, but like it was all like, hey, written by hand by a real human, no AI involved. And it's like, it's a nice little like, take a deep breath, like enjoy yourself, like let's not talk about AI for a little bit, let's have like a nice human interaction. It lets you think about people back home, like your family and your friends. That's like beautiful. Like that's an experience that should be at like a festival type show. So and there were brands that had offsite meetings that were like takeovers of like a brewery or a pizzeria, and that's where they were having like their leadership meetings. So again, they kind of treated at these festival type things, you're kind of creating an overall like event narrative with the booth as one touch point and your takeover as another, and maybe you just have people walking the floor like for other touch points. So that's what I'm excited about. I think that's the way successful trade shows are going, just because services are getting so expensive. And so I think people are going to try and be creative on how they get their ROI from these shows.
I mean, it's funny because you just said that, and it made me think about, it's hard for trade show organizers to kick out bad exhibitors. But as you're talking about that, I'm like, it's part of the thing that can hurt some trade shows is you have people that just they're not adding to the overall feel of the show, right? And it can kind of make it bad. And it's like, it'd be great if we get to a point where it's like there's a minimum expectation, like we're trying to create an experience here for everybody, and you're kind of boring and bringing the group down. You know what I mean? So it's
well, it's like real estate, right? Like, so I saw people with 10 by 20s at RSA that were super impressive, like easily like 6 figures, these 10 by 20s. If you show up next to them with like a taped on piece of paper, right? So it's like Rich's cybersecurity with like pipe and drape, you're gonna bring down the entire like avenue there. Like no one's, it's not fair. It really isn't fair.
Brady's getting uncomfortable because
this is good.
He's like,
I should have Rich do a webinar in front of all my customers, right?
I was thinking, he's like, I feel like you're describing some of my customers. No, it's
So man, okay. Well, we're getting close on time here, Rich. I think we should have you on again because this has been awesome. But we always want to close with like a lightning round, rapid fire stuff. So I've got a handful of questions for you. Just fire away at the answers to these. Some of them are connected to what you do. Others are branding related, which is probably right up your alley. So first off, a trade show trend people should watch.
I mean, well, is it cheating to say the festival thing again? Like, I think, okay,
I think not at all.
A trade show trend people should watch is the rising costs, and maybe reevaluate your strategies for that trade show. Maybe you don't need to go, or maybe you don't need to go as big as you usually do. Maybe you need to go off-site and do something a little bit more intimate, depending on who your guests are, right? I think that's the trend. The trend is that it's getting so expensive that you cannot get away with what you were getting away with before. And to benefit me, a lot of people are kind of saying, all right, my exhibit house is not telling me this. Like they're a booth builder, whereas I need somebody experiential. Like overall event marketing spend has gone down, experiential has gone up. So that's the trend right there. Is you got to do experiential.
What about a mistake exhibitors should stop making? I mean, we talked about a couple of these throughout this.
I talked about quite a few of them, right? I guess a mistake I see exhibitors do is they kind of treat every event with the same goal. And I don't think you can do that. I think the attendees change, the location changes. I think you need to be more intentional about each specific event and what you're trying to get out of it. Like it's not one size fits all. I don't want to keep doing like, platitude, like, don't try and boil the ocean. Really hone in on what you're trying to get out of that show, and then work back from there, right? Like the goal has to be first and then work back from there.
One simple way to make a booth more memorable.
Tell a good story, right? Like tell like a specific story. Don't, like, when I ask people what story you're trying to tell, it's like, well, we're innovative. How? Like be specific with your messaging. Don't be scared to alienate certain people at the show because they're probably not your audience. Be hyper specific with your messaging. Make it clear. I could see it eye level, right? Be clear about what you're trying to do and who you're trying to attract, right? Like your ICP exists for a reason. Don't go to a show thinking that you want, if there's 20,000 attendees, you want 19,000 attendees to go to your booth. You should really want like 500 to 1,000 to show up and be like in the actual funnel for down the line.
And now to the branding ones, your favorite brand.
Favorite brand. This one's tough because like I love Liquid Death. Like as like a marketer sales hybrid, like I love Liquid Death, but these guys like don't show up to like I like, of course, like I want them to spend like millions of dollars with Pinnacle, but like they go to Nax, which is a convenience store show, and it's like a 10 by 10. They just bring like a coffin and fill it with ice and like and even that's like funny. Like, again, if you took away all the Liquid Death branding and you were just like, who brought a coffin to this convenience store show? Most likely you're gonna be like, oh, it's Liquid Death. But I just, they're risky, man. You know, they're risky. I like what they do. They're unapologetic about their brand, and I think that's they know they know who they are, and like they know that they have the right to be that because they've cultivated that. And so I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
What about least favorite brand?
That's a very tough question, man. Let me I'm trying to let me
You're
think
gonna
of
throw under
somebody
the
who's
bus here,
never
yeah.
I'm trying to think of somebody who'd never work with me. Least favorite brand. You know what? This is fine. So my least favorite brand is every single motorcycle manufacturer on the planet, because like I'm a big motorcycle guy. It's a small, compared to everything else, small community in the States. And these guys just don't show up for anybody. Like, they don't do anything experiential. I went to the motorcycle trade show once, never went back. I'm a huge Triumph guy. I learned how to ride on a speed triple. I went to the Javits Center in New York for a bike show. Triumph might as well have not even shown up. And this is a great example for exhibitors. Because of the lack of effort on their part, I never even went back to the show, and I still talk about this. This is like 15 years ago. I still talk about this. So, like, if you're not going to show up correct, don't show up. Like, I have two Ducati. Well, I had two Ducatis. I have a Ducati now, but like Ducati showed up at that show. They had like a barista serving like Italian cafes and stuff, and they had these women in like these beautiful red dresses, and like if you showed your Ducati key, you got like a little thing of swag. That was the kind of luxury experience I was expecting. I couldn't afford a Ducati at the time, so I didn't get that experience, but that's the difference, right? And so, but any motorcycle brand, man, they don't come correct to these shows, or do their own branded events. So not a huge fan.
We always get some interesting answers on that one. Yes, the last podcast we did was every airline that exists. So yeah,
Well, that's
same
not
universe.
I agree. Not even a marketing thing. Just, I mean, do you follow me on Instagram, Ken?
I don't really go on Instagram that much, but I don't know.
Every time I fly, there seems to be something. And I don't want to hold it against airlines. Like, I took a red eye home from San Francisco yesterday. The woman in front of me, like, threw her hair back so it was covering the TV on the back of my seat. That's not the airline's problem.
That happens to me all the time.
Dude, it's never happened to me before, and I'm like, on the red eye, like, I just want to watch like a half hour of this movie so I can fall asleep. So anyway, not the airline's fault, but yes, also terrible.
Yeah, oh man. Yeah, I have bad luck. It's either that or the seat back is instantly in my chin, and I'm almost 6'3", so it's just like, help. Yeah, anyway. Okay. Last one, best business book you've read recently. Or any book really, but could be a business book.
The Experience Economy. I'm reading that, and again, it's like, attention is the new currency. People want real experiences. They don't like, I forgot what it was, but people were complaining about, like, the Grammys was basically just like an advertisement for like betting, like who's going to win this, who's going to win. And it decreases the whole experience, right? Like, we know, right? We know now, like, we don't want over transactionalized things, especially as consumers. So people are craving, like, in real life. AI is kind of like, I don't want to say everything's AI slop, but like, it's hard, man. Like, there's a lot of distrust going on. Like, fashion, my wife's in fashion brands were using like AI models and not telling people that they were AI models. So like, in person is the only thing left where I can really trust you, So, and then if I show up and I'm expecting for like a trustworthy, authentic experience, and you don't show up correctly, there you go. That's it. Like, your brand is forever. That brand affinity is out the window.
Yeah, it's so true. That's one of the things that we talk about, is that organizations, they only are the steward of their brand. They don't actually own their brand. The market owns their brand, and you can spend a lifetime building it, and you can ruin it very quickly.
I listened to one of your podcasts. This woman was on it. She rebranded one of her shows, right? Like, to Loop or something. I forgot the name
Oh,
of it. But like,
that's the company I work for. So be careful.
oh no, I really liked the episode, but you guys, you spoke on that point specifically, and I was like, that's fantastic, right? Like you are your brand, like, and you have to live your brand ethos, and yeah, yeah, I like that point a lot.
All right. Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I definitely think we should have Rich back. Maybe even
totally.
like we could do. Maybe Rich comes out to Chicago, and we could do like a show at the we could do a podcast at the show, and we could maybe talk about some great booths. Maybe not talk about the bad ones, but
That'd
talk
be
about some
awesome,
great
yeah.
ones. Right. So we can maybe
That's
talk
another.
about
I
that.
didn't say this one, but like that trend, like content is king for events moving forward, right? Like
Yes.
you can capture content that will extend the life cycle of these events by like 12 to 16 months. And you're spending all this money creating this branded backdrop, branded
Sure.
theater. There was one booth at RSA that had a podcast built into it, and Pinnacle pushes that hard. Like we actually exhibit at NAB because we build broadcast studios. It's crazy not to have that, especially if you're in an industry with like big community, like gaming, cybersecurity, the firearm industry, where you can't do traditional marketing. You have these personalities, these celebrities come, like influencers, creators, and have them do a podcast live there. And you could, it's a multifunctional booth like area for people.
Right. Agreed. And 100%. I mean, that's probably a great way to take away is that really we should be setting up trade show experiences for content creation.
Mm-hmm. Or at least a section of it, right? Like,
Correct,
absolutely.
yes. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Rich, and talking to us and giving us the the good, bad, and ugly of trade show building and traveling. And I think there's a lot of great information that our audience will take away from this. So I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
This is a ton of fun.
Thanks so much for joining us on Unpacking the Brand. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And if you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, we'd love it if you could share this podcast with your network or leave us a review. It really helps us reach more people who are passionate about business, branding, and innovation.